for a couple of slight problems there, which we seem to have got over. So hopefully everything's going to run. Well, I'll be hosting the news today, Brian Gerrish. With me in the studio is Nick Green behind the technical desk. And we're going to be joined initially by John Hurst, who is going to give an on-the-road update as to what he's been up to. Weather across the country, all the weather reports that we've had in today are generally sunshine and good. Some places a little more cloudy, but it looks as though we've got a bit of summer for the end of June. Okay, well, let's see whether we can bring in John Hurst. We should have him. And I understand, John, you are parked in a lay-by somewhere.
Yeah, I'm in a little housing estate in Gloucestershire. I'm taking advantage of BT's roving free Wi-Fi, so it's working really well.
Okay, excellent. And tell us a little bit about what you've been up to, because I know that you have been extremely busy over the last few weeks in particular. You've been travelling from court to court. What's actually been happening? And people are really pretty desperate for good news. Can you give us some good news?
I can. Well, it's your fault, Brian, but your speciality is delegation, so I'm not objecting. People feed stuff to you, and you delegate again, and that's what I've been doing. As I say, I'm not particularly clever, but I've got a good memory, so I've been in a position to gather information, which I can now share. The two magic words I've been researching are capitalisation and securitisation. So I'll first explain capitalisation. Capitalisation is the concept of when you take a loan, you borrow a sum of money. Well, you don't, in fact, borrow money. You advance credit, and then the person who's loaned you the money will then, hidden away in the contract, will have rules about how the payback is administered, and typically there will be penalty clauses if you fall behind or something goes wrong. Then they will penalise you, and it would appear it's unlawful to add the penalties to the lump sum, because the penalties are one-off charges for doing something wrong, and the lump sum is being paid back with interest. And to allocate penalties to the lump sum is called capitalisation. And the first court in the United Kingdom to confirm that is unlawful is in fact the Northern Ireland High Court. It's a case called Ray. I've written an article about what I've discovered and dispatched it to your office, and I dare say you'll put it online shortly, which explain the details and how to find details of that particular case. So the case of Ray is taken up. It's a chap's got a mortgage. His case is taken up by a housing trust on a pro bono basis, and representations were made at the Irish High Court about 18 months ago to say that this business of adding penalties to the lump sum was unlawful, and the court agreed. And in fact, the court agreed so much it referred the case to the Attorney General of Northern Ireland, who issued an instruction that any cases in the pipeline in relation to that particular bank, Royal Bank of Scotland, should be held until the RIA case is finalised. So it's not completely finalised yet, but it's well on the way, and it established the principle that penalty charges are one thing, and lump sum is the other, and the two shouldn't be joined. Go on.
So, John, just for people who may be new to this subject, what we're essentially talking about here is a focus on how mortgages and other loans, but let's talk mortgages because this is a serious factor that affects a lot of people. The mortgages, we think we're borrowing sums of money principally out of the reserves of building societies and banks. That's not the case. What they're actually doing is making credit facilities available. So that's one layer of fraud, deception on the public. And then you're saying the second one is that they're coming up with charges if you're late paying or whatever, but these charges are added to the capital sum, and then the interest is accrued on that, which is itself capitalisation. So did I hear that correctly, that now in a Northern Ireland court, this has actually been ruled on by a judge, or is that hearing still in process?
Well, it's in process because the convention is only a court can actually rule what the law is. But certainly there's a great deal of evidence being submitted that this is unlawful. You're quite right about we don't actually borrow anything. That's securitisation. I'll come to that next. It's just chronologically the capitalisation has come up first. So what I would suggest anybody would do is it's a research project in progress. and it's similar to the situation with the persecution strategies for social workers. I recommend anybody that's ever had a mortgage, and it also extends to loans and credit cards, to submit a freedom of information request, a subject access request. They take 40 days, and what we'd like to do is have a volume of these freedom of information requests that have been submitted. So we've got material to research on, and we'll teach you how to research it yourself, in actual fact. So anyone who's listening to this, if you can spare a tenner, that's the standard fee. I suggest a subject access request on any financial transaction you've had involving loans, because you could well find that this capitalisation process has been applied, and at the very least it will mean that all the penalty fees and so on should be given back to you, and certainly interest should be given back to you as well. So I won't make promises beyond my power, but it appears to me that's the case. So if you take that on board. The next bit is securitization. So Mr. A, as we call him for legal reasons, appeared at Belfast High Court last Friday. An ongoing case to do with challenging where money came from, and as Brian observes, the question was asked: you were given the money, and because he says he wasn't given the money, he was advanced credit, which is a different thing. And because he was advanced credit, it cost the mortgage company nothing. They didn't lend him anything. If they transferred funds from a savings account into a mortgage account, it would have cost them something. But because it was all done electronically, it didn't. The bank, I would argue, is entitled to charge a small administration fee, but not 2 or 3 times the amount that he borrowed. And documents that Mr. A has obtained demonstrate the mortgage is being paid back at least twice, and we think 3 times. Let me give you an example. If you, when the mortgage company wants you to pay back, you have an endowment mortgage or a repayment mortgage, don't you?
Yes.
Yeah, it's called a repayment mortgage. Well, that's because you paid already, and you pay when you submit the application form, which is a promissory note under the Bills of Exchange Act 1882. So they give you credit for, say, in this case, 200,000, and the applicant has submitted a promissory note for 200,000, so they balance. But the mortgage lender then has the cheek to ask you to repay again. That's why it's called a repayment. So that's why you pay twice. And as in the rear case, in Mr. A's case, large amounts of penalty charges have been added. And the purpose of these penalty charges, they're calculated to inflate the repayments to the point where the poor devil can't pay it anymore, and he's got 3 options. One is to give up and walk away from the mortgage. The other is to accept or take out another mortgage to extend the period. So his second mortgage he's paying interest on the penalty charges again. Or as Anthony's done, is to fight. And when I say fight, he's actually challenging the documentation. And the key to his case is he's got freedom of information requests or subject access requests, and he's got all the data that the company provides, and he's been able to work it out. And we can teach you how to work out what the codes mean. For example, when you get the printout, it'll have large columns of figures, and each column of figures, each line will have a 3-digit code for what the transaction was, and we'll teach you what those codes mean in reality. And that's the key, so you can understand the financial statement that comes back.
Right. John, this is really amazing and very big news, isn't it? Because, of course, not only the number of people who are going to be affected by this criminal scam, because that's what it is, very large number of people holding mortgages. But the other thing I find interesting is, of course, all bands of society have held mortgages. And so we've got the interesting situation here that many people are deeply suspicious of the courts. They believe that certainly courts in Britain are corrupt. I would agree with that, having seen a few of the family courts in action. But we've now got the situation where we could have corrupt judges, for example, or corrupt barristers suddenly working out that they have themselves been defrauded by criminal activity by the banks. So could it just be that this is quite a powerful wedge to drive in the system, because most people are going to be interested in the subject? They've been defrauded over their mortgages, I would have thought.
Well, yes, indeed. The various acts of Parliament that cover the responsibilities of company directors in relation to responsibility for their underlings, and also positive responsibilities to keep records. Now, one of the key records in a mortgage case is the form that the applicant signs, the loan agreement. Now, Santander at the beginning of Mr. A's case said, "Oh, we've destroyed it. It's our policy." And we think that's cover for. In fact, they've sold it, so they haven't got it anymore. And the point about culpability for officials of building societies and the managing director is this: it's before a civil court, but a civil court has powers to imprison people for contempt of court. And laying false information and starting off an action without justification is contempt of court. So Mr. A, another application he's made is that he wants the CEO of Santander, a man called Bostock, if I remember correctly, to be committed, sent to prison, and also the barrister and the solicitor who are in court representing Santander. And at one point, the learned judge turned to the barrister and the solicitor. His hands were shaking and she was sweating. I must say. What would you like to say about this application to commit you, Mr. And a lot of lawyers were in the back of the room, and there was a shocked silence.
Yeah.
It'd be funny if it wasn't so serious. The barrister and the solicitor representing Santander were embarrassed because they didn't have the relevant textbook.
Yeah.
But Mr. A did, and he offered to lend him their copy. So the tradition is this: the case is put off until the end of the term. Courts have terms to the next term, which is in September. But in the meantime, Mr. A and I are preparing an application for that thing to be struck out because there's no case to answer. You recall that Mr. A's got a document that recalls the fact that at some point his total bill was zeroed, a payment was received and it went to zero, and that's the point where the fraud enters, because once the bill's paid, it's gone, and the person who's bought the article concerned doesn't have any rights to enforce the bill on the seller. Right. Because that's what they do. So we live in interesting times, and there are some embarrassed barristers. And one of the ploys that they've used in the food chain in the past is large companies employ solicitors on their payroll, and they prepare statements in civil cases that say, "To the best of my knowledge, and I believe, and I think," and that sort of thing, and then they sign the statement. And of course, from a policeman's point of view, that's no use whatsoever, is it? It's hearsay. It's not true. So Mr. A is wanting the managing director, the man who knows how the computer system works, and Santander initially denied that they do securitisation, but Mr. A's identified the securitisation department of Santander Legal Services. So he wants a lawyer who's the head of that to come to court to say, well, why have you got a securitisation service if you don't do securitisation? And so on. So they really are on the spot.
Well, John, that's really excellent. Thank you for giving us that update. I understand you should be able to join us tomorrow. Is that still the case? We'll be able to get you on live?
Hopefully the article will be published. If anybody's got any questions, you remember I undertook to do 10-minute videos. It's hard to me to judge what people are interested in. As my earlier request, if you ever had a mortgage, time to send in a subject access request for all material that they've got relating to you, all material. If they hide stuff, because we've got the definitive material on Royal Bank of Scotland, Santander, then they'll have a problem because we know they're hiding it, and the process then can be repeated with other bank lenders. But the game starts with the freedom of information or subject access request.
Right. Okay, John, thank you very much indeed for an excellent update. Enjoy the rest of your day, and your mobile studio's looking pretty good to us, I think.
Oh, it's we bought a big 4x4 this time because we both are quite tall, and it's really comfortable. I must press on because I need to make a rest stop. So
okay,
I'll watch the rest of it later. Is that all right?
That's fine. Excellent. Thanks very much.
Okay, then. Right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Well, as a general comment after that report from John Hurst, we should perhaps all remember that much of the political and social change that's being driven in UK on a day-by-day basis is coming as a result of so-called austerity cuts, and therefore we can see that the controlling hand is the hand manipulating money in Britain and the international markets. What we're now seeing from John and, of course, other people researching those banks is that they are following a criminal agenda to defraud defraud the public, and hence we might assume that those fraudulent banks are also driving our corrupt criminal politicians. Well, let's return to the Daily Mail article, or perhaps we will. I think we might have lost. No, it's come back on. This is the Mail article, which we mentioned a couple of days ago. Crime chiefs. 750,000 UK men want child sex. Now, we were pretty quick to pick up on this because, of course, the rule is that the ratio of men to women child abusers is roughly 50-50, a slightly larger figure for men, about 52%, 48% for women. If there's 750,000 UK men, then we're talking about a total of 1.5 million people in UK that, according to this screaming article, want sex with children. Just before I add to this particular topic, notice the embedded article, former Miss GB TV dragon Bannatyne threatened to expose intimate pictures. So we've got the serious subject of child abuse on the front page, demeaned by the deliberate placing of a just a nothing story, but what is it about intimate pictures? A little bit of nudging here, a little bit of playing around with people's minds on the front page of the Mail. We think so. Now, here is the man who claimed to the exclusive, Ian Birrell. He said the shocking figures come from estimates based on academic research and the best available evidence from other sources. And our point was that we asked the National Crime Agency and CEOP for the source of these statistics. They couldn't provide them, they didn't want to provide them, and the Daily Mail duty editor got pretty stroppy pretty quickly and ultimately put the phone down. So let's just dig into this more, because we did the right thing, of course. We emailed Ian Birrell himself to ask him where those source statistics were. We went on to his page here, where you could fill in a box, and here's the questions that we asked. I'm putting them up on both parts on screen so that we're being honest about the message. So we said, "Dear Mr. Birrell, I read your Sunday headline story with great interest, since I'm regularly contacted by individuals reporting child abuse. Of particular interest to me was the source of the statistics upon which your story is based." And then it went on, "Please can you direct me to the actual statistics which have been quoted by the National Crime Agency, as they were unable to provide the statistics themselves. Neither was CEOP. I look forward to your response. Thank you, Brian Gerrish, joint editor of the UK column." So there we are. Well, we didn't receive any reply. Now, the other part of the article here, this was inside that Sunday Mail, double-page spread. It was saying that it's human nature to abuse children. It's boasting about the performance of UK's FBI. And that was the front page, just to remind ourselves. And we were particularly interested in this lady, the UK Abuse Minister, Karen Bradley. And she's bigged up the article by her own comment, "Our battle." Well, here is that lady. She is apparently the Minister for Modern Slavery and Organised Crime, and she secured the passing of the Modern Slavery Act to protect the victims of slavery, clamp down on people trafficking, and help track down and lock up the perpetrators of this terrible crime. So she's a pretty clued up and powerful woman, so it would appear. Well, in that Daily Mail article, this is what she had to say. "This year, we have prioritised child sexual abuse as a national threat alongside terrorism and organised crime. It's one of the greatest threats of our time." So child abuse ranked alongside terrorism and organised crime. And then this is what she goes on to say: "We have allocated an additional 10 million to track down offenders and protect children. The Home Office has set up a database to reduce the time taken to identify illegal images. We're setting up a centre of expertise on child sexual abuse, and a whistleblowing helpline for public sector workers. This is only the tip of the iceberg, which is why the Home Secretary established an independent inquiry to examine failures to protect children. Now, what do we deduce from this? The sense we get is that what is really being set up is another layer to state surveillance of ordinary people. She says that what's been put in place to date is just the tip of the iceberg. She makes a fatuous statement that they need a database to identify illegal images. Well, a computer program is capable of doing that in a few nanoseconds, so that can't be true. But of course, she is claiming that, that David Cameron's Conservative government is protecting children, is protecting whistleblowers, and is helping root out paedophiles. Well, that's very strange because, of course, we know that against her claims, Melanie Shaw spent 6 months in solitary in HM Prison Peterborough for speaking out on her own child abuse and that of other children. We've said here that, of course, at least Sodexo made profit out of her incarceration, but sheer hypocrisy by Karen Bradley, speaking out on what the government's doing, we suggest they are not protecting children in any way. This is about a massive surveillance system which is cruising off the back of child abuse in order to spy on the wider public in Britain. So let's just summarise where we've got to on this particular story. We asked for a simple response from a number of people. We said, where are those statistics that have produced this extraordinary story? So here we are. The National Crime Agency said they're readily available online. We asked where. They said readily available. We asked where. They then said find them yourself. CEOP, which of course is buried inside the National Crime Agency, said, well, we're really the same as the National Crime Agency. The statistics are readily available online. They failed to provide them. We spoke to the Daily Mail. They said to us that Ian Birrell was not in. Then the duty editor said, you've spoken to me before, I'm not speaking to you. Click, the phone went dead. We've emailed Ian Birrell himself asking for the source of the statistics. We have had no reply. And we've also emailed Karen Bradley MP asking for the source of the statistics. And we have received no reply from her either. Our conclusion from this is that this is a massive fabricated story in order to try and convince the public that the desire to abuse children is perfectly normal, it's widespread in the public. And of course, what this article is doing as a minimum is to take the heat off the paedophiles in Westminster and to spread the thing so wide across the UK, people's attention is taken off our own politicians and paedophile members of the establishment. So this is high-level operating by the government. It appears to be showing a collaboration with press and media in UK. We're still going to keep digging as to what's going on here. But perhaps a clue comes from having a look at the National Crime Agency. And this is some of the stuff they've been tweeting out. Let's have a look at it. They're quoting or retweeting here from the National Police Chiefs Committee, who are saying that they're working together to stop foreign criminals in UK. So we've got an Operation Trivium running, which involves UK, the Netherlands, Lithuania, Romania, and Europol EU. So Britain's top policing body boasting that it's collaborating with East European political and police systems. That doesn't give me a lot of confidence. We've then got the National Crime Agency boasting that we're working with UK and European forces to target foreign criminals sheltering in UK. So we don't know who's coming in through Britain's borders, but we're now setting up this massive pan-European police system to target foreign criminals in Britain. If we come down here, we've got West Midlands Police. They're in on the game. Operation Trivium is back! ! We're reuniting with European forces again to crack down on criminals. Here's the National Crime Agency. See how we're working with partners in Scotland to dismantle and disrupt serious organised crime groups. So these are the boasts that they're breaking organised crime down. We're just starting off with former policeman John Hurst, who was busy telling us about criminal activity within Britain's banks and the mortgage system. And another one here, the Serious Organised Crime Strategy for Scotland has been published. So we think what's going on here is the UK government is establishing a police state. The UK column says this is happening in front of our eyes. And what we've had over the last few days is a push to create and condone child abuse, but on the back of it to run a massive state police surveillance operation. If you'd like to read more, you might like to go to the UK column and read the latest article that we've put up on British policing, a dangerous monster in waiting. And of course, in that article, we have actually been delving into the nature of the people who have been in training our police. And that includes, of course, many so-called think tanks and so-called charities such as political charity Common Purpose, which are themselves, of course, funded by some of those very big banks who we are now identifying as being involved criminally with the deception of the wider public. It's a pretty serious situation. Should we have confidence in what David Cameron's Tories are going to do? Absolutely not. And if we need a simple example of that, let's have a look at Michael Gove, because he's now saying that he's going to get in amongst it and he's going to completely change and improve the justice system, which he said is failing society's poorest. So as the Tories have been in, we've seen the courts closed to the public. It's very difficult to just get in now to see justice being done. We've seen a raft of charges implemented if you're trying to get documents or progress material through the courts. But Michael Gove says, don't worry, Gove is going to get in there and sort it out. If we put that one back, please, Nick, let's just remind ourselves of what sort of man Michael Gove is. Well, as the Independent said here, Home Office, child abuse cover-up, Michael Gove rules out a public inquiry into claims of paedophile politicians at Westminster. So the man who wanted to close down any form of investigation into paedophiles in and around Westminster is now the man who has been put in charge of the overall structure of law within UK. And we should also remind ourselves, of course, that Michael Gove's loyalty is not to the British public. He has declared that his loyalty is to Zionism, and therefore the minimum he's got is split interests. I think something rather more sinister is going on. What are we going to do about all this? Well, John Hurst has sort of led the way at the beginning of this programme. We need to get as many people as possible, not sitting and watching and observing, but out there taking action and doing. And if you'd like to get involved via the UK column, then you might like to pay attention to our new forums. We've got a Kent and Brighton local group already set up. The forums assist this to happen by allowing people to communicate. Ideally, what we would like to see is good people setting up local groups for every town and in every county across UK. The more the merrier. Action conquers fear. And we know that when good people get together and act in a sensible, measured way, they can achieve great things. If you want full access to the UK column forums, then we would ask you to please subscribe. It's only through your donations and subscriptions that we can do what we do, and we are very keen to expand. I'll just add that every day we get people asking us if we will help them. It can be with anything from a new laptop to travel, to the fact occasions that they can't feed themselves or house themselves. So alongside the other work that we do over the years, we do try and help people. That is impossible unless we actually receive the donations from people kind enough to donate. So please, if you haven't subscribed to us before or donated, please think about doing so. Well, how can we give you a good example of what you can do? If I can just show this initial slide. Sorry, Nick, I've just got this one in the sequence. This is taken off YouTube. It was sent to us this morning. I've looked at part of it. It looked an extremely impressive video. It's called Part 1, Gas Agent, Locksmith, National Grid, E.ON and Police Fail to Force Entry to Fit Prepay Meters. And it's been posted by Trial Bar Social Media with Mark Gillard and Kevin Mark. And we're going to show you a short excerpt from this. Encourage you to go and watch the full thing. Let's just have a look at this clip.
It's all right. We've got, it's no good knocking on there. You'll not get any reply. We've got third-party authority here for me to deal with this matter today.
Okay.
And that's under Data Protection Act. So I can give you ID for myself to show that that's my name on there, and so can Kevin. So this lady's not going to engage with you today. We are. So
Were you a relative or something?
No, we're just acting
we're
as
just
agent
Mackenzie
for
friends,
her.
representatives for her, that's all.
So you have to speak to me or this
So
gentleman.
she's not going to answer the door, is
No.
You're not going to get no response from her.
response.
The third party's there, which is Data Protection Act.
Have you told her not to answer the door then, sir?
No,
She's
she
her
knows
own person, and she's instructed us and authorised us
to act on before.
as our agents, and there's a third party which is under data protection. So how can we help you today?
Who's Kevin Mark?
That's me.
And you're Mr. Mark Gillard?
Absolutely. And your name is? I'll not film you.
Yep. Oh, you're filming this, are you?
Of course I'm filming
yeah,
you.
we're filming you for our protection, your protection.
Our
sir.
protection and yours.
Right. You've got nothing to worry about. I'm only here to speak to this.
Yeah,
To us.
You're here to fit prepaid meters.
That's correct. Yeah.
Right.
Correct.
Okay.
So what I'd like to know, could we see the copy of the warrant, please?
You can see the actual warrant.
Please.
Brilliant.
Yeah,
The
please.
original one.
Yeah, the original mustn't be photocopied.
It's not.
Thank you. I'm not going to snatch it or anything. I just need to look at it.
You
That-
can read it from there, sir.
Oh,
Okay.
the old trick. Section 46
Why is
of
that
the
in
gas.
blue ink and that's in black ink?
Because I signed it.
That
And
should be
the
signed by the judge.
The magistrate signed it, and in his own pen. He didn't ask to borrow mine.
Okay, what's
no,
his name?
but he should sign the date of the warrant when that warrant was signed.
Okay,
so I
what's-
know that that black ink signature is the date of that warrant.
Is that the name? Jane Mevin?
That's right. That's the lady's name.
Is she a justice of the peace or is she a magistrate? It's not identified.
Okay, just a couple of things on here, Ian. You're going in, you've requested a warrant under the 1986 Gas Act, not under the 1954. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah.
Where in the 1986 Gas Act does it say that you're allowed to force entry?
Well, I don't have a copy of the Gas Act itself.
We do.
We do.
Okay, can you show me? Show me then.
The only way you can force entry for...
Right, you've got a locksmith here, I'd imagine.
That's correct. Yeah.
That's okay, we'll be polite. We're not going to be
Okay,
abusive to
no,
you.
we're not.
You've got a locksmith here.
Just to put you in the picture, we do this on a regular basis,
Yeah,
assisting
fine,
people
okay.
with
right,
these
you've
warrants.
got a locksmith here
So you're here to assist me today.
Sorry, we're
You're
here to assist. We're here
Okay.
to assist,
No,
not to assist you. We're here to assist the alleged
Occupier.
debtor, the occupier.
and protect her rights and privileges.
So,
Right.
So
Okay.
you've gone for a warrant of entry under the 1954 Gas Act because you are going to drill this occupier's locks.
No, no.
oh great.
Well, why is the locksmith here then?
Well, hopefully she'll answer the door.
Well,
No, but
that's
if
not
the
going to
locksmith-
happen.
If she doesn't answer the door, that doesn't say anything about the 54 Gas Act, so therefore you cannot drill those locks.
Have you got a copy of the
I
54
certainly have.
Gas Act.
The 86 Act?
The
This is the
86
one that
It's civil.
Right. The 1954 Act, which you're going to do to attempt to drill the locks, is a criminal warrant of entry.
We won't be drilling the locks.
Are you going
If she
to
doesn't answer, are you going to drill the locks?
or
We
pick
won't
them?
be drilling the lock, pick the locks
Right.
if we need
Well,
to.
pick
Forced
them. If she
entry.
doesn't answer, then are you going to pick the locks? It's a forced entry, and that's why you go under the 54 warrant of the 1954 Gas Act, Section 2 or 3 of the warrants of entry. If you're just quoting the 86 Gas Act,
That's civil.
that's a statutory warrant, which is just civil, not criminal. And for you to get into that property, the occupier's got to give you consent, and they do not consent to
Have you
prepaid
got a copy of
meters.
the Gas Act?
I've got the copy, not the 86, because I know that's a statutory instrument. And I do know in the 86 Gas Act it just says
Doesn't give a forced entry.
it's not forced entry, it's
But
civil.
you're unable to show me otherwise, aren't you?
Well,
So
you,
obviously
Well, I
this
it's
know.
not down to
86
us to prove. It's down to you to prove that you've got authority to do
You're
it.
saying that I can't do it.
You can't.
You can't.
Where does it say that?
In the
You're
86,
You're going under the 54 Gas Act. That's why this locksmith's here. You're going to attempt to pick the lock or drill the lock, yeah? She won't answer the door, sir.
She may do.
She won't.
If she may do,
She won't. You
Just
can-
one moment. Joanna, are you going to engage with these people today? Do you give authority for me and Kevin to deal with this? Full authority.
There you go.
Okay, so just forget this occupier. Now, we are agents and you are dealing with us if you want to gain entry into that property.
right, okay.
Okay,
And
so
the-
we are refusing you entry into that property. So what we're asking you now is what you're going to do next.
I'm just going to make some phone calls.
Okay, superb, Ian.
But if you're going for the 54, which is attempting to force entry, there's the gas safe certificate.
You can only force entry because you think that there is an
What do I need
unsafe.
the gas safety certificate?
Because you're going to drill the locks under the 54 Gas Act. You're going to pick those locks. And for that, you need the 1954, because the 1954 gives you a criminal warrant of entry to use force to get into this property. But for you to do that, you've got to lay sworn information down to the magistrate that you say in this house is unsafe.
Have you applied for this warrant?
Well, yes, I did. Sir.
Right.
You applied for the
So
warrant.
did you?
We're not saying the gas meter's unsafe because I haven't seen the meter.
Well, then
that's
you've
why
no
you've
no
no
grounds for
jurisdiction
you've no
then to
jurisdiction.
pick
You've
the
no
locks.
grounds to pick any
You're
locks.
saying the meter is safe.
We've got a
There's the gas
safety
safe
certificate
When was that dated?
within the last 12 months.
It's valid. So the 86 warrant, which you've got left, is called a statutory warrant, which
It needs
requires...
to be updated annually.
No. These
I'm
last...
sure.
Yeah,
12
that's
months
valid.
certificate.
But
It's
it
the
was,
landlord's...
this is February
15.
15.
15, that's the
so
landlord's
it's still
certificate.
valid.
So
Valid.
it's a new certificate, 3 months old.
So you're going now under the 1986 Gas Act, which is a statutory
Civil.
instrument which requires consent.
And when we say
Civil.
consent, we're not talking about
Right,
consent.
okay. I'm going to.
We're not causing... we just want to make sure this lady gets her rights, you know?
Yeah, I'm just
Plus
going
the
to make some
account
phone
is
calls.
the account's in dispute, and it has been for some time.
We got this covered.
Yeah. You know, because they hit a brick wall, did you see him shaking a bit?
Well, it's adrenaline like we do. You
But-
know, we do. You can't blame him. It's just adrenaline that. But we've got him. We've got it sussed.
So just remember, if you're watching a video, always remain firm, but always remain polite.
Firm,
Polite.
assertive, polite, and non-aggressive.
Now he's a gas agent, and he knew nothing what we was talking about.
No.
Nothing at all.
But yet he's been to court and
Yes,
made a
he's
sworn,
applied for the warrant.
sworn affidavit.
Yes. But he's gone off, as you've heard. He's going to make a few phone calls.
Mm-hmm.
He said the locksmith's here,
Yeah.
but the only way they can use a locksmith is under the 54 Gas Act.
But they've not applied under the 54
no,
Gas Act.
so why is the locksmith here, which I questioned? He's on the phone now,
Good.
so it's just a waiting game.
You all right, ladies? Good.
So if we put that slide back on screen, if you go to YouTube, here's the name of it. You'll be able to call it up yourselves easily. Gas Agent Locksmith, National Grid, Eon and Police. And the bit we were particularly interested in is running from 37 minutes in to about 42 minutes. Please watch the whole thing. But what I was going to emphasise today is that basically in that 5-minute clip, these two gentlemen are saying how important it is that people get out and act on their own behalf, that they do so in a polite, reasonable and assertive way. You don't need to be rude, you don't need to be aggressive, but basically, if you do the right things, the establishment back down. So have a look at this. Have a look at this video. Well, let's go over to this subject, which is defence, because of course the UK column alone has been warning of the treason which is dismantling Britain's defences. This is deliberate, it's calculated, it's ultimately designed to ensure that we are subsumed into the European military system. And as some of Britain's senior military officers start to pick up what's happening, so the government has been forced to dredge
Social media.
comment. And so what have we got here? George Osborne's father-in-law, as we reported also a couple of days ago, saying that cutting Britain's military improves defence. That's what the gentleman said, and he said that moaning American generals are quite wrong when they say that Britain is in retreat. We won't go through all of this text, but let's remember, of course, that as David Cameron, Blair and Gordon Brown start wars in the Middle East, the overwhelming casualties form with the American military. And this is an outrageous comment from the father-in-law of the Chancellor. So he's demeaning American generals. And of course, Britain's cuts ultimately put American armed forces at risk. What a disgraceful statement for this man to make. Well, if we analyse it in a different way, Reservist Day is going on at the moment. And let's have a look at what's happening, because all of a sudden the government has got money to actually promote reservists, and all over the internet, including being twittered out, we have these adverts that if you're a reservist, you should be turning up for work in your uniform. And whilst I've got a lot of respect for reservists, I'm also going to say, of course, let's remember that these are part-time military people. The government would actually have us believe they're equivalent to full-time professional servicemen and women. So what's the agenda? Well, we think this is disrupting the public mind. It's public cognitive dissonance. On one hand, you're slashing the armed forces. On the other hand, you're promoting a make-do arrangement with reservists. And the other thing it is doing is nudging the public into accepting military uniforms on the streets. Okay, I'll just finish this, Nick, if I may. So the next bit here is that this has also been pushed through, that it doesn't matter how old you are, because according to the Ministry of Defence, you can join the reservists up to age 49, and higher age limits can apply for professionals and specialists. Well, of course, I'm obviously going to reapply, because presumably at 60 I should be able to get in. So we've got young, fit and highly experienced middle ranks being sacked by David Cameron, while older people are recruited. Madness. No, this is destruction by a treasonous Conservative government, and that is the right word. And of course, The Guardian, very quick to get in and help support, and they're ramping up the call for the final destruction of an independent armed forces in UK. Don't forget, it was The Guardian that was pushing the early articles that Britain should be fully locked into a European army and should join the French in a joint treaty and military arrangement. And that has now resulted in the French being buried into Britain's command and control infrastructure. The importance of that is decisions which should be taken by Britain as an independent nation state are now being interfered with by French military in the system at high level. Well, if we've got trouble with the cutbacks of Britain's armed forces, all based on the fraudulent claim of austerity and no public money, this gentleman is warning something very dangerous is afoot. Paul Craig Roberts has produced a really excellent article called Guest Column by Vladimir Putin. And in this particular article, Paul Craig Roberts is warning about what is sheer propaganda coming from the West, which he says has now become so thick that it is threatening the world with a devastating war. So we really encourage you to have a look at this column. Here is a man really understanding that at the moment both the UK and the US in particular are being told an utter pack of lies over so-called Russian aggression in the East, while we can see that the rhetoric for war and the ramping up for war on the world stage is coming from Conservative Prime Minister David Cameron and, of course, the American regime under Obama. Propaganda is the key to the change which these governments would have take place. And that leads us in nicely, of course, to the BBC. And let's have a look at what's going on here. Well, apparently David Cameron threatened to close down the BBC, according to Nick Robinson. Well, did he or didn't he? We thought this was an interesting article because everybody is now trying to make this seem a joke. He was only joking. He didn't really mean it. There we are. David Cameron says he's going to close down the BBC. It was just a little bit of a jokey schoolboy, public scope schoolboy joke. We just remind people that we were told by very good sources before Cameron was elected that he was on record amongst his own team as saying, when I get elected, we will legislate against people like these. And he was talking about the UK column. I wonder why. And we also should remind ourselves that it was the very same David Cameron who is a common purpose supporter, but who drove the Leveson common purpose attempt to take state control of the press and media. So could it just be that because Leveson failed to get that control and a few people in the BBC are waking up, that the truth is coming to the surface? But the minimum is that we are watching an emerging dictatorship in UK, and we all need to wake up pretty quickly. So some of you have contacted us quite upset, and the problem, the angst, has been created by the fact that really we haven't reported much on the fact that some 200,000 people recently took to the streets for austerity demonstrations. Now, the UK column always likes to conduct a proper investigation into things before we jump the gun, as it were. And we were very interested to see how a huge number of people were brought onto Britain's streets protesting about austerity, but not actually saying anything important, such as the whole of the austerity drive is a scam, which could be solved overnight by reissuing our money under a reissuance of the Bradbury as credit, as opposed to debt-laden money produced by private banks. So where did this get us to? Well, well done Guido Fawkes, because on his site he flagged up this gentleman, Russell Brand, and of course he was there leading the austerity demonstrations. And many people, of course, are in love with this man. They think he's a celebrity who's on the right side. He's there leading from the front. Well, we couldn't disagree more. We are highly suspicious of this man and his objectives. Here's the article from Guido, and anti-austerity protesters turn on Russell Brand. And if you have a look at the embedded video clip there, you will see quite some hostility as a number of demonstrators quite rightly challenge just who Russell Brand is, who he's working for, and pointing out the sheer hypocrisy of a man who is extremely wealthy, but now he's leading austerity demonstrations. And let's also remember this man is great friend of the Labour Party and Miliband, the Labour leader. But we notice this. The People's Assembly, and we seem to have some pretty high-profile stewards here. So, as usual, we said, let's have a little look at this organisation. And here they are. And this is the website, extremely glossy. It's very well put together. It's very slick. It's very professional. That always makes us interested. We can't seem to find any names for who's behind it. If anybody could help us out with that, we'd be delighted. But it did have this embedded video on the right-hand side of the screen. And when you click on that, you're into a very, very polished video clip, which is apparently showing these very well presented people. All looks like they've recently had a bath, they've washed their hair, they're looking very smart indeed, and they are discussing how they are going to run this austerity march. So let's put in the brand, the People's Assembly. Our comment is that it's a slick scripted video which smells of professional backing and big money. And we're going to say that our overall verdict on this is the People's Assembly, in our opinion, is UK government approved. So we can fully understand why Russell Brand would be there. If you'd like to ask them some questions direct, you might like to phone that London number. We did several times this morning, but surprise, surprise, nobody seemed to be there. Well, what else can we tell you about this organisation? Let's just have a look at the people supporting it. I had to do it in a brief video clip. Let's see if that works. See whether that's going to go. Yes, it is. Well, we've got some success there. So we've got organisation after organisation. All of these people have signed up with this mysterious serious People's Assembly. Sorry, I lost my place there. It goes on and on. A lot of Communist Party input. And if you're a member of the Communist Party and you'll think I'm being unkind, I'm not. I think you're being duped here by the British government. On it goes, National Union of Teachers, many union people. So this surprising little organisation pops up in London, glossy website, produces videos, whole thing led by Russell Brand. I think we know what this is, a government operation, isn't it? I'll leave you to work that out. That brings us to the end of today's news. What we are seeing throughout UK at the moment is the truth bubbling up to the surface. We have a corrupt British government promoting overseas wars, hiding the activities of child abusers, and at the same time building up the most incredible state surveillance regime that certainly the world has ever seen. On that happy note, we'll leave you there. Do have a look at the Gasman video to see just what we can do to stop what David Cameron and his collaborators are doing. Thanks for joining me. We'll be back same time tomorrow. Bye-bye.